Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Ron Paul Liberty Report. Daniel, what do we have going today?
Well, you may have heard, sir, there was a speech. A foreign dignitary came to town into Washington this week to give a speech before Congress. The Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it.
Well, I even watched part of the speech, but I didn't watch the whole thing. But I understand it's rather unique for a foreign dignitary, a leader of another country, to speak before the Congress at all. But this was Netanyahu's third time, and generally speaking, he's always been well received. Congress is really determined to cement and continue the relationship with Israel. But this speech was more politicized. I mean, the whole idea that the president didn't want to talk to him and resented the fact that he was invited, and some Democrats boycotted this. This was not a simple little thing. And the other thing is we have to look at this in context of what's going on in Israel, because there's an election coming up, and it just seemed to me to be too politicized. I don't know what you think about that, but I just think it was more politics and real diplomacy and trying to inform the Congress as well as the people in this country on what's going on.
It's difficult because, as you've always argued, Congress has so often abrogated its authority and its power. We all know that this is all about the ongoing negotiations over an agreement with Iran. And you've always argued that Congress has been way too lax in asserting its power, and that on one hand, it's to be welcomed that Congress wants to scrutinize this agreement and everything. But on the other hand, as you say, it's difficult because he was invited, I think, explicitly to try to scuttle an agreement that Obama is trying to make with the Iranians to head off the possibility of another war.
Yeah, and the motivation, I think, was more political. I don't think the people who were objecting to this negotiation going on, because there's legislation that suggests that the Congress has a right to oversee this, and I would say, generally speaking, that is very true. If it's very significant, like some of our trade agreements, I thought they should have been treaties, but they avoided that because they didn't have the votes to pass the treaty. Now, this seems like it's diplomacy. They're talking about a country that has been maligned and some consider very dangerous, and the possibility of using nuclear weapons. So they're talking to them, and should it be done right in the middle of this? You know, there was a deadline set, so obviously there was a lot of politics involved, and it became very partisan too. Yes. If you were a Republican, I mean, you had to obey the line and just say, okay, what we have to do is do whatever we can to embarrass the president. And yet I don't think their concerns, as our concerns might be, about how do we sort this out constitutionally. You know, where are the prerogatives of the president? Because he does have this prerogatives of diplomacy, but if they're in the middle of this, negotiating, say, a withdrawal in the time of a war or something, you wouldn't want to think that every step has to be reviewed. But, you know, the other solution to this would be one that this wouldn't occur probably in a libertarian society, because we wouldn't be involved in the nitty-gritties of everything going on around the world. I mean, did we do this when Pakistan was thought to be getting a nuclear weapon? And all of a sudden we're at a point where the assumption is made absolutely that they're on the verge of a nuclear weapon, or that is the possibility. And of course there's been inconsistent predictions about that for a long time. Tomorrow they're going to have this nuclear weapon and all. So some of these problems that are created, I think, stem from the fact not only do we not follow the Constitution well, but sometimes it's because we have a foreign policy where we feel so engaged, and then the factions get together and they argue about it. So.
Yeah, and I think the neocons are in a panic because they see the possibility of this agreement, and maybe they're afraid that they may see this this dispute settled peacefully, where the Iranians will find some relief from the sanctions, and the U.S. and Europe will find some relief from their concerns about Iran's activities and behaviors. And I think the neocons are afraid, and that's why, as you point out, there have been hysterical predictions from, I think Benjamin Netanyahu, first time in 1992, said they're 4 years away from a bomb, you know, and
yeah,
so they've been saying this all along.
And then there are some security people, they may be retired, but there are known hundreds of them in Israel that are not beating the war drums, you know. But you know, that won't be settled today, but I think it raises questions, but I think overall I'd like to think it in the broad terms of the foreign policy, and we create these. But there was one article that I really enjoyed reading about this, and this came from a group of people that were annoyed with Netanyahu coming here. But it wasn't an American faction. It wasn't, you know, Republicans versus the Democrats. This came from Israel. And it wasn't, there was a big rally, over 5,000, and it wasn't Jewish people out, and it wasn't Arab people out. It was a combination. It was women. It's called Women Wage Peace.
Oh, that
and that's my kind of article. And I thought that was fantastic. They came out and they just wanted to make the point that all this fighting and going on and this bickering is not good. And they're sick and tired of the war. The one thing I learned from this was that I never thought about it, but I didn't know the individuals, and men and women serve in the Israeli army, have problems with PTSD. I thought it was only Americans who were getting shot at and stepping on bombs and all this, and so you don't hear many. But this was one of the reasons these women met, because they were sick and tired of seeing their kids come home. And they had a suggestion. I thought it was a pretty good suggestion, even though I'm sure Bill Kristol won't like this. He said, and then one woman says, "We don't want our children to go into the army anymore." And I got to thinking, you know, and I've taken this position in public before. Governments create war. They're at fault. If we didn't have so many big governments and big weapons, and it always depended on the people generally just get pushed into war through propaganda, and eventually maybe the people will wake up. And I think you have mentioned about how that happened in Ukraine. About
the mothers also demonstrated there. But you know, I think another fascinating point about this story is that there is a much broader and richer debate in Israel about these issues, you know, and what we get over here is people saying, when they say I stand with Israel, they mean they stand with Netanyahu and the war hawks. But there's a whole huge faction, there's a whole big debate in Israel, and actually as John Utley, a friend of ours who writes for the American Conservative, also had a very interesting article this week that really tracked the declining influence of the real hard neocon Israeli lobby here. And so it's encouraging to see there that there's a debate, and it would be nice here if there were more of a debate about this.
And I understand Netanyahu's speech did not boost his ratings just recently, so maybe the people in Israel will be responding to it, which is the place it should be responded to. I don't think we are capable of solving that problem here in this country. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Ron Paul Liberty Report, and come back soon.